start with some grim news and hopefully end it on a positive note. So I wanted to briefly talk about the death of Michael Brooks. Michael Brooks, as some may know, some may not know, is or was the co-host of the Majority Report with Sam Cedar, and he has a show, the TMBS, the Michael Brooks Show, where he did a lot of, I think, very unique content on the left. He had a very I want to say globalist, but I guess an international perspective. Cared a lot about movements in other countries and stuff like that. And I think he was a fundamentally very optimistic person, which I think is it's easy to like look at the state of the world, see people dying all over the place, see this shift towards I'll say more authoritarian governments and people like Erdogan in Turkey, Orban in I think Hungary. Vladimir Putin, Donald Trump, the rise of people like Marine Le Pen in France. I don't think it'd be fair to necessarily put Boris Johnson in that camp, but I think the point remains. I think it does take a degree of like courage to be able to see how crappy things are and still be optimistic. Because I think the left oftentimes gets characterized as being like overly pessimistic, talking about like, oh, America's found on slavery, blah blah blah, all these bad things. And I think what a lot of people probably intentionally neglect to acknowledge is it takes a lot of I want to say courage, passion, I guess, to look at how bad things are and then say like how great they can be. I think Michael Brooks is really good at doing that. So it's a huge loss to miss out on him. So long as passing, I kind of wanted to talk about like, I guess, democratic socialism. I wasn't really planning to do a video like this, but I think it's important. I'll give my brief spiel. I'm not super into leftist theory. I don't really care. But like, I think the fundamental ideas of it are something worth considering. Like Marxism and socialism are basically the conceived fulfillment of the promises that we made ourselves or made in society in the Enlightenment, right? We want to free the people, give them more control over their own lives, and we took that perspective and applied it to government, which affects all of our lives. It does, right? It's good we don't have kings and queens, we have presidents and prime ministers. That's definitely an improvement. We had secular societies. But where we didn't take that democracy to is the workplace, where people spend half of their waking life almost. So we still have those authoritarian top-down structures in that respect. And as a byproduct of that, we also have the coalescing of wealth and as a byproduct of that power in the hands of people who own capital, right? So a good example would be like how Jeff Bezos, basically the CEOs of Starbucks, Starbucks, Amazon, and Microsoft are all based in Washington, right? Those companies, well, I don't know about Starbucks as much, but definitely Amazon and Microsoft definitely have interesting histories with lobbying and abusive or exploitative business practices towards other companies and towards themselves, and shutting down competition and not compensating their workers properly. Those are issues distinct to each one of them, I think. But for example, like Jeff Bezos attempted to use his wealth and his power to influence the city council in Seattle, like who would win, because they were contemplating levying a tax on some of the largest businesses in Seattle in order to raise funds to house their homeless population, which has been growing as those companies grow and they expand and they hire more people, and the housing situation doesn't expand as well. You don't have more people who can't afford to live in a place where they have to work. Man, it's kind of annoying. I started writing I like have semi-outlines when I do this stuff. I wrote up like a little bit to like kind of give me a guide, and after this, after I wrote up like kind of what I wanted to do, I read Michael's book, which is a quick book, it's only like 80 pages. And he captured the sentiment better than I did. It's like really frustrating when like you try to do something and someone's just done it better than you already. It's like, God damn it. But that's okay. So the general idea behind democratic socialism is like the decentralization of power and to as many people as possible, while increasing the aggregate freedoms that each individual experiences in society. I think it's a noble goal. I think it's something we should strive towards. I think the best approach to that is an incrementalist goal. I think that's something Michael understood. There's tons of people want to LARP about, like, oh, revolution, blah. Oh, why vote for Joe Biden? Because, like, the world, because, like, you know, he's really a centrist. And it's like, because any true leftist project should be rooted in a constant and unremittent improvement of the material conditions of people in the world. If you think like, oh, there's no difference between Joe Biden and Trump, like, you just don't have your eyes open, or you're delusional, and you're engaging in some weird accelerationism. If you want to make the lives better for people, the answer between those two people is very obvious. And I think the pragmatism that people like him support, where like, hey, you know, like what's it called, the election in Kentucky right now, which is between well, unfortunately we lost what's his name? I know his last name's Booker. I can't remember. I feel like it's with a C. I want to say Cory Booker, but that's wrong. Booker, Kentucky. Charles Booker. That's close. Cory Booker. Is it Cory Booker? Cory Booker? Is that his name? Huh. We would have 2 Bookers in the Senate. That's cool. That's why I was like, I gotta be wrong here, but yeah, it's Charles Booker. He lost the Senate primary to I forgot her name. She's like uninspiring, like fighter pilot who's running for the Democratic primary, who is like, you guys voted for Trump for the right reasons, and let me fulfill those right reasons and do the things Mitch McConnell won't do. Like, a really uninspiring campaign. But I would say, go out there. If you voted for Charles Booker, you want material conditions to improve. And let me just tell you, getting rid of Mitch McConnell, who's as competent as he is evil, unfortunately, that is to say, both in very large quantities. And getting rid of him, even for some tepid centrists, is a market improvement. But we need to keep pushing to get more and more of these people. And like, you can't look at these things as in like, oh, they're not my progressive. They don't have all the ideals I love. They don't do that. Like, no, you look at things and you say, okay, in this situation, what's going to improve the material conditions for as many people as possible? In that case, like, yeah, getting rid of Mitch McConnell for like literally anyone would probably be better, particularly if there's someone running on a Democratic Party ticket, as opposed to him just losing a primary because Donald Trump backed some like out and out like Hitler-esque figure, you know? But that's sort of where I just wanted to go with that. Like, you should always view any sort of leftist movement, I guess to just summarize it, you should always view any leftist movement as an endless desire to improve material conditions for as many people as we can. And that all the policies and all the beliefs that stem from that fundamentally rest on that belief of improving the conditions, right? I don't say seize the means of production or like have more worker co-ops or whatever just because I want like a certain group of people to do good. No, you support policies like that because in the long term you think it will improve the material conditions, not just for those people who work for that company, but for the society as a whole that has a system of like, or like a higher prevalence of co-ops or a higher unionization rate, that generally benefits that country as a whole. Because it disperses power through as many people as possible, and that democracy seems in general to be better than authoritarianism. And I think as long as you root your belief system in making the world a better place for as many people as possible, you'll probably eventually end up in some flavor of leftist thought. Now, that's why it's very easy to break bread with like neoliberals, like I'll say liberals, sorry, like Joe Biden or whatever, because I don't think Joe Biden or like other less left-leaning people in the Democratic Party want to hurt people. I think that they are largely just ignorant. I don't think they have a very holistic perspective of how power dynamics and how movements really work, or how best to tackle certain issues. I think they're fundamentally misguided, but I think their values are still in the right place. And I think there's people like that who, if you can present them like, hey, like, here's why what you're saying doesn't work, and here's why like we have a chance, you know, that you can move some of those people over to your position. As we move the Overton window like further to the left, where we open up ideas like Medicare for all become more widespread. Keep in mind, in 2016, people were calling Bernie Sanders fringe. Now there's a large coalition of people like elected politicians and advocates who talk about stuff like Medicare for all. All right, what's the next thing? So I guess, you know, I think Michael Brooks was a very articulate, very passionate speaker that conveyed that message on what it really means to be part of the left, which is that constant march towards improving the material conditions of people in your country, people across the world, and understanding it from that global what's it called, that national lens of improving conditions for everybody. So really cool. Really unfortunate that we lost that guy. He's a young dude, he's 36, died from some, like, I think it was an embolism or something. No, sorry, I'm saying that wrong. It's like a thromboid, whatever, it's irrelevant. That's not, I'm not a doctor, but mourn his loss. Very unfortunate. I miss that dude. He was I talk about it more so in a different video, but there's like people as you go through life who have like who influence your views and how you think in a very meaningful way. I was thinking like I don't really get emotional or attached to like people when they're dying. I kind of remembered like Robin Williams was one of those people who was like very, very like charismatic, a very good character. And I found out, I was thinking when Michael Brooks died, I'm like, man, this kind of reminds me of like, while I'm not like super emotional about it, like it does feel like there's like a hole in your heart of something that was like influential and meaningful at a certain point in your life that is missing. And Robin Williams was actually born, this is just sheer coincidence, something crazy about this, but he was actually born the same exact, he was born July 21st, and that's also when Michael Brooks passed away. I was like, oh, that's kind of a weird little coincidence that in my head before I even saw that, I was like, oh, I remember when Robin Williams died, and I'm like, oh, Aladdin, and how upbeat and how positive he was, and things like that. And then I think about Michael Brooks passing, it's like, oh, he passed on the day this guy was born, and they both seem to have some sort of meaning. But okay. So I want to talk now, like, why, I guess I could probably separate this in different videos. No, I probably won't. I'm lazy. And I think it's relevant. So I want to talk about why I think the left now, I think there's tons of reasons to be optimistic right now. I think there's a general left-wing awakening in this country that we haven't, I wouldn't be able to say exactly when we had it last, but it definitely wasn't there under Obama. There was a lot of fervor going into Obama's election where he was viewed as this progressive person who's going to accomplish a lot of change. And in that respect, Obama was a huge disappointment. He didn't really deliver that systemic change that he campaigned upon. And people were expecting him to. And I would say he kneecapped that movement in a lot of respects. A lot of people were just very happy with Obama as a president. And you saw the left kind of become meek during that time frame. I think with Biden, it's different. One, you have 4 years of Trump, which I think made people kind of realize like how shitty everything is, and particularly the pandemic, how shitty everything can get with their level of incompetence and ineptitude. Because usually Republican ineptitude plays out over like 8 years. So by the time like the really bad effects of what they've done manifest, like they're done being president, and it happens under some Democrats' watch, and it's like whatever, like Bush helps crash the economy in 2007. Fortunately, it happened right at that tail end. But imagine if that was just pushed like a year, and it happened right as Obama became president. Just how shit, or I guess it was at late 2006, whatever. But yeah, I think what's nice about having Biden as our candidate is it kind of demonstrates to, I would hope, the left that the push is like it's a constant struggle, like an internal struggle again to gain more power, gain ground, and to never become complacent. Like imagine if Bernie Sanders became president and then all of a sudden people stop focusing on getting progressives in Senate seats, or getting stuff like ranked choice voting pushed through. They have it in Maine, or getting it in other places that would make third-party candidates more popular. All these things that could help a leftist movement that we just wouldn't push for because, like, oh, we got the president. Like, there's this great thing where we feel like, oh, we fought for this thing, we got it, and like everything's gonna be fine. And it's like that's not how anything works. Like, it's a consistent push over decades that's going to take to like put this country on a path to where there is some sense of equality. There's some sense of opportunity for people to achieve things and have power in their daily lives to improve their material conditions in a meaningful way. Like, that is not we elect Bernie Sanders or we elect Barack Obama and now we can go take a nap. Because you take a nap and then the Republicans wipe you out in 2010 and then you're fucked for a decade, which is like the world we're living in right now. I'm not sure I'm gonna have a whole lot of citations for this, but I could get them, I guess. Maybe I'll do it afterwards. But I'm going to talk generally about it and not really look at the citations. So here's the great thing about fucking Trump. That could definitely be clipped out of context. He has been so unbelievably shitty and so unbelievably incompetent that he has led to a position where Joe Biden is leading him in polls by about 10 percentage points, which is fucking insane. Now he's doing this. A lot of people don't know this. There's something called Project Red Map. Project Red Map was when, well, that was definitely some spelling right there. Project Red Map was what the Republicans did in 2010 or in the lead up to 2010, where they focused on winning as much as they possibly could because the census was occurring. And then every 10 years we redo House seats, right? We reapportion the House of Representatives, and then in early 2011, the new Congress at that time are the ones who decided how these, or sorry, not the Congress, the new state seats and all that, decide how they want to apportion the new House seats that they have, and they get to ratify, or so they get to modify also their House seats. Sorry, their state level House seats. Wow, I'm saying that really bad. Like that the state level House and Senate. The state level. I don't want to say Congress. That's not correct. Sorry, their state legislatures. There we go. Their state legislatures also get remapped. So Republicans did this in 2010, where they just fucking cheated like nobody's business. They gerrymandered the fuck out of every like state that they could control, like Wisconsin. I don't know if they had Michigan too. They definitely did Wisconsin. They did Ohio. They did Florida. You know, it goes down the list. And they did that so they can squeeze their minority vote into having as much representation as humanly possible. And the best example is like North Carolina House delegation. This is like the craziest example. So in like 2018, they gerrymandered North Carolina so well that of their, I think it's 13 reps. This is a horrible map to look at, but yeah, this is terrible to look at. They have 13 seats, and like there's 4 Democrats. 1, 2, 3? 3? Only 3? I guess when there's 4. Whatever. There's like 3 or 4 Democrats, even though Democrats won 50 some odd percent of the vote. I think it was like 52% of the vote in 2018, but only got 3 or 4 of the House seats. Like, it's actually 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Huh. Yeah, okay. I guess they only got 3 of the 13 House seats. It's somehow even worse than I thought. They won 50-something percent of the vote and got like 25% of the House seats. That mathematically makes no fucking sense. And it's because Republicans gained control in 2010. And now they were able to gerrymander that. So they gained an enormous House allocation in...
Hey, Wendy.
Go away. Oof, pardon the interruption. You guys wouldn't even notice that because I'm going to cut it right in. Where was I talking? What was I talking about? Okay. Oh, yeah, Project Around. So basically in 2010, the Republicans took over state houses. They took over Congress. Or sorry, they took over state houses. As a result, they took over Congress. And when they took over the state house, they were able to be even more aggressive in this respect, right? So gerrymandering affects like House seats and I guess like state Senate and state House seats as well. But they use that to also pass like voter ID laws and change everything to like stack the deck in Republicans' favor. And the thing is, when they were doing this, you actually have like a certain calculus, right? You can only gerrymander to such an effect. And I think there was like a quote when they were doing like the Democrat ones where the guy who like made the apportionments, he's like, the reason I gave Democrats 3 seats is because I couldn't just give them 2, or I think he said 4. The reason I gave them 4 is because I couldn't just give them 3. And the reason you couldn't do that is because you want to build certain margins into it, so like your guy is always winning by a comfortable margin, just out of reach of like a sort of blue wave to be able to reach. And they did that successfully in North Carolina, because even in 2018, North Carolina, they didn't gain any more seats. Even though there was a huge blue wave there. But they gerrymandered them so well that they managed to wither that storm. So that's always the goal when they're doing the gerrymandering, is get as many as you can by a comfortable margin. Now, the problem with that is when you have that sufficient blue wave or change in like delegation or whatever, or change in constituency, and that does happen, you get blown out. Like it was something like for every percentage point the Democrats like won the popular vote, they got like 2 seats. And then once they get to like 6%, every percent over that was like 6 seats or 8 seats. it was a dramatic gain over that point because of how gerrymandering worked. Like, they only gain a certain amount per percentage, but once you hit a certain threshold, the gains start getting enormous because of how that worked. It's gonna be hard for me to find that article. That was like a 538 piece back in around 2018. But it was a very interesting piece about how the gerrymandering worked. Anyway, so the reason why this is relevant is because, where did I have it? The upcoming cycle for our new redistricting, you guys may have noticed I was talking about 2010, we have the 2020 census going on right now, and Republicans are scared to death because Trump, because he's so fucking unpopular, there's going to be a blowout again in 2020 in terms of Republicans getting slaughtered right when it comes to us redrawing maps again. So the way they were able to fuck us, or I guess the Democratic Party, I wouldn't necessarily include myself among them, at least super happily. The reason they were able to bone us was because they won 2010. And the great part is we don't even need to cheat. We just need to make things fair, and Republicans lose. Now, I'm not opposed to the Democrats being a little more politically ruthless and maybe gerrymandering, Florida. No, you can't gerrymander Florida, but let's say North Carolina in the opposite direction. I'm not necessarily opposed to that from political pragmatism, but I could see arguments to not do that and just create nonpartisan districting commissions. But that comes out, these districts will get finalized somewhere between like March and summer of 2021. That's well after the 2020 election cycle is finished and all those people have been seated who won their elections in 2020. So this is a huge opportunity for us because Trump, because he's so, imagine if he was just some like, I don't know, like let's say Bush first term, or like, I don't know a whole lot about Reagan, we'll say like H.W. Bush. Imagine if we just were like barely able to edge out this win. We wouldn't really get as many state houses convincingly. We wouldn't really get as many governorships. We wouldn't get all of these things that would enable us to have a powerful position for the next 10 years. And like that's kind of what we're walking into here because of Trump's like unparalleled unpopularity and like botching of this thing. You're gonna have a blue wave. Like, it's not a blue wave, it's like a blue tsunami that's gonna rip through this fucking country. But that's only if we get out there and like everyone votes. You don't think, oh, we got this, it's safe. It's like, no, it can't just be a win. It has to be like one of the most monumental blowouts in like American political history. I'm talking like what, like Reagan, like first term Reagan or whatever. One of them won by, or was it Nixon? I think Nixon lost like one. I think he just lost like New Hampshire and that was it, or something like that. Nixon, Reagan? It was one of them. I can't remember. It was one of those horrible people. So this is a huge opportunity for the Democratic Party and the left in general to either make things fair for us going forward, or what's it called? Or, if we want to be more politically, I guess I'll say savage, cunning, cutthroat. There we go. We could gerrymander it in the opposite direction, make them say uncle, and then agree on like a middling solution. Personally, as long as we have nonpartisan districting commissions, that'd be hard to dismantle. I'm fine with that because, once again, I like things that are more democratic, more representative. I'm not really a huge fan of cheating, particularly when I don't need to. I'm not really a huge fan of ends justify the means, but if the means isn't that bad, the ends is really good, sometimes you talk about it. Because right now the Republican Party is in like the worst state I can imagine. So making them like reevaluate themselves for a decade and become relevant is important. This is also, I guess the last point on this, it's like why it was so impressive that the Democrats won by such a hefty margin in 2020, because everything is just 2018, because everything was so stacked against them in the House, where people are like, oh, maybe they won't gain a lot, but they regained control of the House for the first time in like a decade during that like redistricting. The other thing I wanted to talk about in relation to this is these Senate seats. So Georgia is one of these places that shifting more blue, more purple, more blue by the day. There are 2 Senate seats available in Georgia. What's his name? Lindsey Graham is up for election in South Carolina. These are places that with significant momentum could shift very heavily in our favor, being able to hold those seats. Gain 2 seats. In Georgia, it's 2 seats up for grabs. You have a special election due to, I think someone stepped down or died of cancer or something. I don't remember who it was. And the other one's just up for grabs. So there's 2 seats Democrats could get in Georgia with a significant blue wave. The Democrats almost took the governor's house in 2018, and the only reason they didn't get the governorship is because of a substantial amount of cheating. Now, if we have an even bigger blue wave in Georgia and they're not able to suppress the vote well enough, I mean, they won because of suppressing the vote, but there's only so much you can suppress the vote before it's like very obvious what you did, and you'd have like serious backlash. So hopefully we can get the vote out enough to where we can get one, hopefully two of these seats. Now, to be clear, I'm being very ambitious on what I'm talking about here. In Iowa, you have Joni Ernst, who's very vulnerable. That's not a place that's really shifting like blue in any meaningful way, I don't think. But they've always just like kind of been in that middle state. And obviously, there's farmers aren't doing too great now either, and I could see Joni Ernst getting knocked off. I don't know about Kansas, to be honest. Texas, Beto O'Rourke only lost by like 2%. Let's see, 2018 Texas Senate race. This is another one that's really ambitious. Joe Biden is, he won by like 2.6%, like barely edged this out. The other senator, everyone knows Ted Cruz sucks. The other senator, John Cornyn, is also very unpopular. Now, it really just depends, like, who's the next, like, really... Biden is pulling ahead of Trump by like 1 point in Texas, so it's within striking distance for sure. And if you have a good enough Senate candidate, which hopefully it's own charismatic, it's a shame Beto O'Rourke sucks and was like so conceited this election cycle. They didn't go for John Cornyn's seat, and then he like botched himself anyway. But whatever, we could have had that one, and maybe if we have a good candidate, get a little lucky. There's a small chance about Texas too. So basically, I'm saying like all these seats in Brown, these are considered toss-ups here. Arizona, that's not going to be a toss-up. That's going to be a blowout by like 6 to 10%. That Martha McSally is going to lose to a fucking astronaut. The guy who's replacing her, not great, but hey, better than a Republican, better than John McCain. I think it was John McCain's seat. Montana is an interesting one. It's like the former governor, who's a Democrat, who's the one running for the seat here, and I think it's an open seat. That one might not be a shoo-in, but it'll be close. Cory Gardner is definitely going to go. Susan Collins probably going to go. I think it's her time to go. North Carolina is another one where I think the Republican's going to get ousted. I think is it Tim Scott? Tim Scott's definitely one of them. I don't remember. And then I think the pink ones, we have like good striking distance. I don't know enough about Kansas, but I think Iowa's going to be an opportunity. I think Kentucky's an opportunity. Both Georgia seats are an opportunity. South Carolina's are opportunities. And once again, if we have that huge wave, we can get a very strong Senate. And like some of these candidates are going to be centrist and they're going to be crap. But like centrist crap people, you can kind of like push in that direction. Oh, Alabama is going to be interesting. They got rid of Jeff Sessions, who was their previous senator, because Trump decided to like primary him. So you have people who are going to be mad that Trump is dumping on Sessions and like even made fun of Alabamians a little bit. Back this like crazy dude. So hopefully there'll be enough people who are just pissed off at Trump for like shitting on Jeffy Sesh. That maybe Doug Jones will be able to hang on. Probably not, but whatever. I honestly don't know why this is a leans pink. It should definitely be a likely pink. That's a tough one. But hey, with the whole Tommy Tuberville, a dumb, stupid like football coach who's now trying to join the Senate, there's a chance on that one. So a follow-up point on that is I want to talk kind of about, I think Biden's kind of got the whole like ignorant friend thing going on, and I mean that in a good way, right? So Obama felt constrained. There's one of the books I referenced in some other videos, Dog Whistle Politics, talks about, and it's like the intro chapter where the authors talk about how he like went to law school with Obama and actually grew up in Hawaii with like Obama. They weren't like friends in high school and they weren't really that close in law school either, but like they knew of each other. And he kind of talks about how Obama always tried to walk this line of like being like racially neutral and not like overly stoking like emotions and stuff like that. And I think that's something that would very much benefit Joe Biden. He won't be constrained by these things because he's kind of like that clueless friend who's like, we're all just the same, and like not really super aware. And I feel like in that respect, he could kind of like bulldoze through some progressive legislation that someone like Obama would be more worried about the optics of. Where if we put significant, we being the left, the progressive group of Democrats put enough pressure on someone like Biden, we could get real change pushed through. So I think he can be restrained in a way that Biden couldn't be, and I think because Biden's fucking Biden and like the progressive base like absolutely fucking hates this guy because I was talking to someone about this the other day. Like he literally used the states' rights argument, which is like a fucking Nixon Reagan era like dog whistle about like don't let blacks like segregate or don't desegregate blacks. He literally used that in the Democratic debate cycle, and like no one talked about it. It was crazy. Like, this is the guy we're talking about. So I don't think there's that same chance with like Obama where you're like, oh, you know, hope and change, you know, well, he's gonna do great things, and then like the left just kind of fell asleep. With Joe Biden, like every day just be on Twitter negging him, negging his appointees who suck, and not just Twitter, but obviously like, you know, march for stuff, get involved in primaries, get involved in all this stuff, and keep pushing him further and further to the left. I made a video the other day about his great climate plan, or very progressive climate plan, $2 trillion over the next 10 years. That's great. But we can keep pushing him. We just keep pushing until we get the world that we want to live in. Man, this is taking longer than I thought to go through. Oh, cool. I already talked about the potential Senate pick-off seats. Cool. Don't have to do that again. Yeah, and I think to just like kind of close that out, we have opportunities because of how bad Trump is to actually make the world like so much better, because of how motivated people are going to be to go and vote for Democrats, or depressed enough with Trump's lack of performance and their hatred of Democrats to just stay the fuck home. And good. If a Republican wants to stay the fuck home instead of vote, like, I'm happy, because I want to, like, I don't care so much about the president. Well, no, I care very much about winning the presidency, but I think a lot of people underestimate how important it is winning more seats in Congress, taking these Senate seats for 6 years. Oh, and the other thing I want to talk about, in Georgia is another place that's becoming more purple. If we get some of these Senate seats for 6 years due to a blue wave, it's possible when that 6 years comes, if we hopefully have the governorship and like a better slate legislator, and we get rid of all their voter suppression efforts, that we could actually, it could result in that just becoming a lean blue place. And Georgia is a big fucking state. Let's see, what's Georgia's rep count? Georgia Electoral College. It's probably like 15, honestly. It's a big state. It's 16. Georgia's one of those places I never really thought about, and then like I found out like, oh, like there's a shitload of people in Georgia. There's a lot. The Atlanta metro area is like 4 million people, 6 million people. Atlanta metro. I'm getting distracted right now. I know it. I'm losing the plot. Let's see. I'm curious now. 7 million. Combined statistical area? Okay, 6 million for the metro. 7 million for the combined statistical area. A lot of people in fucking Georgia, man. Big state. Yeah, and this whole, okay, so the next, I guess the last little segment on this one is, there's this cool picture. I really should have downloaded it. But basically it showed like an iceberg, and how like the death of George Floyd was just kind of like the tip of that iceberg, and how, man, this light's getting fucked up right now. Sorry, the death of George Floyd was sort of like the tip of the iceberg that sparked change for all of these, or sorry, sparked movements that were related to a bunch of other lying issues, right? So you have that happening during the pandemic, right? As a result of the pandemic, what was it, 40 million people were unemployed when that started. Most of those were lower wage jobs, people who can't work from home, right? If you work at a diner, you work at a restaurant, you work at a retail place, you can't really do that work from home, can you? And as a result of that, there's a lot of people who are hurting, who were disproportionately lower income, which is also disproportionately black. It kind of put a lot of these things into the spotlight in a way that they wouldn't. So I think this 2020 election cycle, while it seems dark, I think it's sort of like the night is darkest before the dawn, right? Because of how bad this is, and because of how much like what was it, like the police were like tear gassing like moms. Police tear gas moms. There's like moms protesting for Wall of Moms, Portland protests, tear like the police are tear gassing moms. This isn't like, you know, Black Lives Matter. Like these are moms wearing soccer like bike helmets who the police like attacked. 2 months of protest, Wall of Moms putting themselves between prison photos and effort to keep. But within hours of forming, the group was met with force from police. The police are attacking groups of fucking moms. Like, this is optically the worst thing I could ever fucking imagine. And like, you know, they're gonna go home to their book clubs and their wine club. I shouldn't be dismissive or whatever, but they're gonna go home to these things, and like, you know, their friends who weren't at that person are gonna see like, yo, I got fucked up by the police. This has potential for like some of like the most dramatic changes we could have ever seen in our country. Like, I don't even want to say civil rights era change, like 1965. Like, it can be literally bigger than that. don't want to say Civil War era. Well, you know, it could even be bigger than that because the Civil War, like a lot of people think like, oh, we ended slavery, Civil War, but it's like now slavery just went by a different name for like another 60, 70 years. It's called convict leasing. Look at the fuck up, okay? It's a thing. It was basically slavery, just they didn't call it slavery, and it was on occasion more brutal. You just couldn't buy people. You had to rent them from the government instead. Very, very ridiculous. Different video though. But like there's a huge potential for change that's manifesting in the world right now, particularly in the United States. And we can seize this moment as long as we keep pushing. Everyone gets out and votes. Everyone does their whole mail-in ballot thing as often, as frequently as they can. I think that's where I kind of want to end. I think that's something Michael Brooks would have sort of like understood, right? He had this idea of like Bernie Sanders winning in, and he kind of talked about how this is like the start of a movement, and I think he was right. Or no, I completely agree that he was right. That it was about seizing this moment and beginning this nonstop push for change that meaningfully impacts people's lives. I think to honor his memory and to honor that, if you're people who are fans of him, or if you're just someone who wants to see material conditions improve, he was a fighter for that, and I think the best thing that we can all keep doing is you just keep moving forward, keep fighting, and one day we're going to live in that world that we want to live in. But it ain't going to be easy. Hell, we might not even be there for it, but it's the fight that's important. Shoot, I forgot to talk about pessimism. I'll have a separate video on pessimism versus optimism, and how I'll just cut this part out.